Welcome to the retirement rabbit hole. Today, I'm talking about my relationship with hiking. And as I said in the title, let's call it my hiking obsession. I'm going to start by just showing you a clip of where my wife and I went hiking yesterday. Um, we finally got some snow. I thought it was kind of pretty, so thought it'd be a good place to start. Welcome back. So, I thought I'd talk a little bit about the my history with the hiking and how we got into it, or I got into it. It all started somewhere around age 50. I went on a golf trip with my brother and a couple of his friends. They're all 5 years older than me or so. We had a good time. I was out in Scottsdale, Arizona. Nice place to go golfing. Um, One of the days we had finished the round early and decided that maybe we wanted to do something else, and so we went on a hike. And there's a place around there called Camelback Mountain that one of the guys knew about, so we thought we'd head over there. And we went there, and the hike is about a mile long or so one way, so it'd be 2 miles round trip, maybe 1,000 feet or so in elevation gain. I guess considered pretty strenuous. Um, so anyway, we take off, and I get about a third of the way, and maybe a couple 100 feet up, and I'm done. I'm shot. There's no way I'm continuing. The trail gets steeper after that, and so I just sat down and hung out there for a while, and then eventually worked my way back down to the car and waited for them all to come back. So pretty humbling, embarrassing experience. Um, and I guess after that trip and thinking about how things were going, it was about that same time that uh, I was starting to have some health issues. I was on some meds for anxiety. My blood pressure was up some. I was overweight, probably pre-diabetic, um, and I decided I really need to do something different. Otherwise, I'm going to end up being a statistic somewhere. So, I started about that time. Just started joining my wife on walks around the neighborhood. She was doing it regularly, and so I started joining her on those. And we had a dog, and we started taking the dog to a local park maybe once a week, maybe every other week. and we might put in about a 3 mile walk around the park and stuff. And so that led to, I think the next step was geocaching. And not sure if you're familiar with geocaching, but that's kind of let's throw mini treasures in the woods and hide them someplace, and see if people can find them. And if you're not familiar with that, I could always do a video on it someday, or you can go out to geocaching.com. But it's actually kind of a fun thing, and it's surprising just how many of those geocaches are out there. But so we did that for a while, and the main thing it did for me was it exposed me to some of the trails that are around the area that I wasn't familiar with and didn't realize existed. Um, so from that, we started actually venturing out and doing some of the hikes that weren't connected to geocaches. And eventually we kind of put the geocaching aside and started actually doing a lot more hiking and less geocaching, and what I would consider real hiking. It was probably in the neighborhood of 3 to 4 miles and maybe 1,000 foot of elevation gain. And I think back to those days. I remember, that was a weekend thing. We'd usually do a hike on a Saturday, and I was shot for the rest of the weekend. I was sore and really tired. Um, Not much yard work the following day because, again, I was beat. But over time, got worked my way past that. Um, so we were doing that for maybe a year, and then there was this local hike called the Seven Sisters hike. Um, it's more in the neighborhood of 6 miles and maybe a couple thousand feet of elevation, and actually lots of up and down. The Seven Sisters name comes from the fact that there's seven mountain peaks, and so you're going up and down each one of them. And I think the last time I tried to count them, I came up with something closer to 11. But um, so anyway, it's generally considered one of the toughest hikes in the area. So we decided to take that on finally, and and I was kind of using it as a test to see if we were really hikers at that point. And we made it. So I considered that a passing grade. And so from there, that became okay. Well, if we can do the Seven Sisters, what else? What else can we do? So I was hooked. This whole hiking thing was a thing that I wanted to keep doing more of. Um, so the next goal became let's do Mount Washington, because of course that's just an obvious next step. Um, so we kind of practiced for probably about a year, and then eventually we worked our way up to doing Mount Washington. And the hike that we chose was 10 miles round trip. Um, it was about 4,000 feet in elevation, expected to be an all day affair. Mount Washington has quite the reputation as a dangerous place, so um, I thought I was fairly well prepared. But I think about it now, and it was like I was about as unprepared as you could be. Um, one of the one of the examples of just how unprepared I was is we got into town, and we had to go to the general store so I could actually get a map, because I didn't even have a map of where the trails were. But in any case, given that, we did wind up making it. And here's a couple of pictures just for proof, just to show that we got up there. Um, and we actually climbed it. We didn't take the cog railway up, or take the road up. Um, but I guess cog railway is interesting as another sign of my preparedness. My initial plan was to hike up and then see if we could get tickets and take the cog railway back down. Um, we got up there, and I started checking into actually taking the cog railway back down, and found out that if we were to try to buy tickets, they were going to, you could only buy round trip tickets. You couldn't buy one way tickets. And I'm notoriously cheap. So the idea of buying a round trip ticket and not using both halves was too much for me. So we wound up walking back down, even though that wasn't initially part of the plan. Um, I'm sure my wife was really happy about that. Um, so then I would say if I was hooked before then, I was really hooked after that. So um, I started digging around and found out that there's actually more than just Mount Washington up that way. As a matter of fact, there's a list that's called the New Hampshire 4,000 footers, and if you if you actually hike all of those, you'll get a certificate, and you'll get a patch that you could put on your backpack or whatever you want to do. Um, so the 4,000 footers, there's 48 of them, and and then also looking around, I found out that there's another list called the New England 4,000 footers, um, and that one adds the Vermont and Maine peaks. So there's 4,000 footers in Vermont and 14 in Maine. So if you do those, you can get yet another patch and another certificate. And so we signed up for that. I signed up for that. I signed up both of our names. Whether my wife was really into it or not, we don't know. But she came along, and pretty sure she's glad she did it at this point. And so it took us 7 years, but we wound up finishing both of those lists. Um, so this picture that I'm showing you here is the map I have in our what I call our hiking room. It's uh, it's the room that we have all our gear and everything, and where we get dressed when we're heading out to do a hike. Um, and so you can see on the map there's a bunch of pins, and so as we were doing them, a pin went into the map. So actually, that's one of those things that my wife has mentioned several times. Is she's not so sure if I'm doing it for the hike itself or if I just like putting pins in a map. But I think there's a little bit of both. Um, so once we finish that, it's like what's next? And so anyway, there's plenty of things to do after that. The next one in the next list we worked on, and actually we were working on it a little bit while we were doing the 4,000 footers, but there's another list called the 52 of the View. Um, so interestingly enough, in New Hampshire, they decided that you may finish the 4,000 footers. So what are we going to give you to do after that? So we'll give you, since there's 48 4,000 footers, we'll give you 52 more so you can hike 100 peaks in New Hampshire. Um, so and the name is 52 of the views. So actually each one of those has a view. So honestly, I think a lot of those hikes were nicer hikes than the 4,000 footers. Um, but in any case, we probably spent a year or two, and we finished off that list. And as you can see, there's yet another map and some more pins. Um, and then after that, it turns out that there's another list called the New England 100 Highest, and so we included in that are all the 4,000 footers and a few of the 52 of the View. So there were probably about 70 of them that we had already done. So it just seemed like the obvious thing. We just have to finish this off and hike the rest of them. Um, about that same time, we were started going up to the Adirondacks and hiking some of the high peaks in the Adirondacks. There's yet another list out there, 46 high peaks. So we were kind of going back and forth between those two lists, and what's interesting about those two, beyond what you get with the other lists that we had already completed, is some of the uh, some of the hikes are on mountains that have no official trails. Um, so in some cases, there have been so many people that have been on those mountains that there might as well be an official trail, although technically it doesn't get maintained, and you might have to work your way around trees that have fallen and some things here or there, but it's usually pretty easy to follow the path that's there. But there were a few that there's no obvious path, at least for portions of it. And in some cases where we're doing legitimate bushwhacking, where you just kind of, as the name says, you're whacking down the bushes as you're trying to find your way. Bushes isn't so bad. It's the pine trees that you wind up trying to snake your way through. That you better wear a long shirt and eyewear and everything else, because those can be a little tough to work your way through. Um, so we finished the 100 highest list, and as of yet, we have not finished the Adirondacks. We kind of got waylaid for whatever reason. It wasn't. We weren't as excited about doing that one. Maybe it's just a different direction. Anyway, there's probably several reasons, but we haven't finished it. I'm not saying we will never finish it, but we also kind of got redirected in some of the things that we were doing. Um, so I'll kind of go back a little bit, and about, I think, maybe the Christmas after we had hiked Mount Washington, my wife bought me this book that's called AWOL on the Appalachian Trail. Um, if you're if you know much about the Appalachian Trail, that name might be familiar, and or the book might be something you've already read. But if you're not at all familiar with it, it's AWOL happens to be this person's trail name, what he called himself while he was on the trail, and he decided he was going to through hike the Appalachian Trail. I won't get into a lot of details on either the Appalachian Trail or through hiking, but the Appalachian Trail, and here I just put up a picture of that so you can see my map of the Appalachian Trail. So it's about a 2,200-mile trail that uh, starts in Georgia and ends in Maine. Um, it gets, I don't know, I think these days somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,000 people a year that attempt to through hike it, which through hike means that they're attempting to hike the entire thing in a year. Most people do it somewhere in a 4 to 6 month time frame, spend most of their time camping out in the woods. There's lots of varieties of that. The only main criteria is that you finish it all in a 12-month window. Um, but having read that book and learning about the Appalachian Trail was a fascinating thing to me, and and it just prompted me to think of a few things, and I guess the idea of through hiking is something that I've thought of, but I don't see us likely ever doing that. Mostly because I'm just not big into camping. We've done some, and I'll do an overnight here or there, but the idea of spending 4 to 6 months basically out in the woods is not something that I see myself doing. Never say never. Anything's possible. Um, but given that, um, we've the appeal of the Appalachian Trail, and for that matter, other trails, is there. So we've uh, we've hiked um, all of the sections of the Appalachian Trail in Connecticut and Mass, and we did that a number of years ago. More recently, we did Vermont and New Hampshire. We have parts of Maine. We have bits and pieces of other places further down south that we've done. Um, we may do more, not sure. It's it's sure we'll do more, at least some of the more interesting spots. Whether we'll try to do the whole thing, I'm not sure. Um, but we did. So that's what we've done with the Appalachian Trail. There are some other trails out there. So one of them is called the Long Trail, and that's in Vermont. And a couple of years back, we hiked all of that. I think that's 275 miles. Um, so that was a fun year. Actually, that's a beautiful, beautiful hike, beautiful area. Um, so there's yet another map, and this one has no pins. Um, a few other trails that we did, the New England Trail, which is in Connecticut and Mass. Um, the New England Trail used to be called the Metacomet and the Metacomet Monadnock Trail. I think the Metacomet was what it was called down in Connecticut. And anyway, I'd say 10 years ago or so now, they designated the trail, and the federal government took over. Um, and so now it's an official long distance trail. Um, that one, there are parts of that that are within 5 minutes of our house, so we get out on that a lot. Um, in addition to that one, there's the Robert Frost Trail, which we did, fairly short, all in Mass. There's the Mid State Trail, which is also in Mass. That's a little bit longer. Actually starts in Rhode Island, and goes to the New Hampshire border. Um, we did the last year. We did the Monadnock Sunapee Greenway Trail. It's up in New Hampshire. Um, I had a lot of nice parts to that one. I'd do that one again. Um, so beyond all that, we've hiked several different areas around the country. It becomes something that I consider whenever we're thinking of taking a trip anywhere. If there's a place to hike, we're much more likely to do it. Um, last year, we went out to Utah, and there's 5 national parks out in Utah, and we did them all and hiked a whole bunch of them. Um, so that's kind of the history of where we started and where we've gotten to at this point. So we're talking, that history that I'm talking about is, it's about 17 years now. So I started at 50, I'm 67 now. So about 17 years of hiking. Um, I consider it an awesome experience. I, I love it. I think we love it. I think I love it more than she does, but uh, it's just a great experience, a great activity for us to share together. Um, it uh, so the work I was doing, I had some flexibility in my schedule, and it was probably about um, 10 years into the hiking thing, and I decided that hiking just 2 days a week wasn't enough, so I moved my schedule around and worked a 4-day week. Um, and so I could free up that one other day so we could actually go hiking 3 days. And initially, I was taking Fridays off, and we'd hike 3 days in a row, and then I moved it so that I took Wednesdays off, because I found that hiking 3 days in a row could really beat up my body too much. So having a couple of days in between was better. A couple of years before I retired, I decided to go on, we'll call it a trial retirement. Uh, dropped down to part time and only worked 2 days a week. So since I was only working 2 days a week, I had 5 days I could hike, and that's what we did. We hiked for 5 days a week. Um, been retired for almost 4 years now. And initially the idea was, okay, we'll retire, or yeah, we'll retire. We both actually left at the same time, and the the idea was we'd still hike 5 days a week, because it's ridiculous to think of hiking 7 days a week. That might have lasted a couple of months, and then we started going out, and eventually we got to, yep, we're gonna hike all 7 days a week. Um, so now I won't say we hike 7 days and never take any breaks. Last year, I think we actually took about 20 days where we didn't head out on a trail. Um, and there are some days where it's only 2 or 3 miles that we'll get in. The weather's been really cold and brutal around here lately, um, so it's really hard to convince myself to get out and do anything long during this weather. But um, I just find that if I don't go out, especially if I consider not going out for 2 days in a row, which I don't think has happened for at least the last couple of years, after a day of not getting out, I can already start to feel itchy and like I need to get out. Um, it's just been um, I guess, back to the title. It's been an obsession. Um, yeah, from the fitness standpoint, so I started out the video telling you about some of the trials and tribulations that I had. Um, Hiking has been a perfect answer for that. I would say within the first 2 months, the headaches and the anxiety went away, and I was having no more problem with that. Um, Generally, the blood pressure has not been a problem since then. Um, the weight, I lost a little bit of weight over, kind of gradual, as we were doing the hiking. Um, and then actually the hiking itself inspired me to get a little more serious about that. So I've done 2 or 3 different hikes over the course of those 17, or not hikes, 2 or 3 different diets over the course of those 17 years, um, to drop some weight, um, partly because, actually largely because, it's a lot easier to hike longer miles if you're carrying less weight. And there's a lot of people that spend a lot of money trying to reduce the weight that their gear has, but one of the easiest things to do is drop 10 pounds off your body, and it just makes life so much easier when you're trying to climb up those hills. um, so it's it's been good for me. And I again, back to being the obsessed person. I consider hiking my cure for almost anything. So if I'm just tired or feeling a little sick, or have a cough, uh, allergies are acting up or hurting a little bit, go for a hike. And for me, it almost always improves after a good hike. Um, so anyway, I'll I'll uh, I'll stop at that. And I put together a clip that I figured I'd show you about some of the trips we've taken. Um, Hopefully, I'll able to keep it short. Um, I'm sure this video is going to be longer than I want to begin with. The clips will never do it justice. I encourage anybody to get out there. It's there's a lot of beautiful things to see if you get out there. Um, but yeah, I'll leave you to watch the clip, and if there's anything from a hike perspective that anybody's interested in, then or anything that I talked about that you want to know more about, just leave me a comment. I can get back to you. Um, if you're interested in more hikes, same thing. You can ask me about some other areas, and maybe I've been there. Um, if you're interested in looking at more hikes, I have another channel called Dan and Nancy Hike. I'll leave the link down below. And I just checked, and there's almost 200 videos that are out there. So, um, so we've been busy, and obviously, since we hike almost every day, there's not a video from every day, but any of the bigger ones that we do, I tend to to drop a video out there. So anyway, here we go. Take a look at the some of what we've done. So there's a good picture of what we came up. Watching how a pro does it. Dead Horse State Park. Somewhere down there is apparently a dead horse. Dad joke for today. Oh, yeah. So today we're hiking down the Queen's Garden Trail, I believe, to the Peekaboo Loop Trail. And this is how the morning is greeting us. Snow on the ground, fresh snow from last night, maybe a half an inch. But this is pretty awesome. That's where we came from. Okay, so that's it for this video. If you like what you saw, click the like button. If you want to see more, click subscribe. Leave a comment if you want to know about anything else or have some suggestions for this anything about hiking or any other content you might like to see. And thanks for watching, and have a great day.